Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Security Repo Podcast. Thank you for tuning in to this episode. Always happy to have you with us on this security journey of learning. Please like and subscribe. Please share this with your friends. Such as this week's episode, you could share with Srajan Gupta. He is our guest today. He is a security engineer and builder focused on uncovering how systems fail, not just through vulnerabilities, but through the architecture itself. He's got a background in application security, platform engineering, and threat modeling. And recently, he's been taking a look at this evolving world of MCP, Model Context Protocol servers. And that's why we brought him on the show to have that conversation today. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Well, let's just dive right into it. For people that might not be familiar with MCP yet, which kind of find that hard to believe how much they've been hyped in the last few months, but still, maybe you could just start with a high level overview. What are we talking about here?
Yeah, absolutely. So MCP, the Model Context Protocol, is basically a bridge for AI models, for these LLMs, to connect to these external systems. Now, before that, we were using APIs, right? All of these systems have their APIs already, but we have to do a lot of massaging. We have to do a lot of prompting to build and let our AI models connect to these APIs. But what MCP does is it builds that deterministic nature for my model to interact with these APIs. So, in short, what we have been calling it as a connector that turns AI into something more useful than just text generation. So that's the high level of what MCP looks like today.
So, to get more context to the model, this is the protocol to do it. Totally makes sense. It's a pretty
Exactly.
good name, pretty specific name when you actually understand what's going on under the covers. So, how did you start working with MCP servers, and why are you the security aspect? How did you get studying that aspect?
Yeah, I mean, I always have been looking at the new technologies that are coming up, and always start by using it. But being a security person, I always look at through the lens of what can go wrong or what can break this. And when I first started using MCPs, just for my normal day to day, it was pretty obvious that it would become such a you know it would be so much easy to carry out all these prompt injection related attacks. And the more powerful the workflow is, the more severe the attack would be in all of these. And when I started reviewing the documentation, looking at all the design and stuff, I could clearly find so many gaps, uh, like at different levels of MCPs, tool registration, and all. Um, it was very similar to, it was a deja vu in the early days of APIs or setting up cloud environments.
So, I'm curious, which one did you start with, or maybe we can even step back a little bit further. What were you doing with AI? Were you developing with AI? Were you trying to develop AI itself, and that's how you came across this, or what's that story? What was the
Um,
technology you were first touching?
yeah, I think when it first came out, like I was mostly a more of a AI application developer, I would say, not really a model developer. But when these came out, and they were, Anthropic already had few examples, that we can just dive in. And one of the key things was one of the key MCP server was GitHub. So now I'm directly interacting with GitHub APIs, or AKA GitHub MCP, directly within my cursor or Claude desktop, or whichever MCP client that we want to use. And because the attack surface is so wide now, and I can do so many things just with few instructions, it would open up so many loopholes. And one of the key things that I notice is that indirect prompt injection is going to be very, very difficult to prevent in all of these, because the way MCP attacks are going to be carried out is in a chaining method. So it is calling one MCP server, and then it is calling another MCP server. So for example, GitHub plus Slack. So sending or pulling all information from GitHub and sending that to Slack. So these are two different benign MCP servers, but they are being used for doing something uh, malicious. So that was the point where I realized I need to do a little bit more deep dive.
So I don't have a lot of experience using MCP servers because I'm not an application builder day to day. I mean, I mess around with AI all the time, and I'm not against AI in any way, shape, or form. But is it just that like the AI itself can't figure out CLI use, and this is making it easier? Like I know it kind of goes back to the original question, but we already have like these beautiful command line interfaces we wrote. Like, why can't the AI just use those?
I mean, they can be converted into a tool, right? Uh, but it just MCPs make it very, very easier to determine or to really understand what tool exactly they need to call during its thought process. Basically, we can definitely convert all of these CLI tools and convert that as a tool, which is what the AI agent or LLM are going to use. And the the biggest gap or the biggest threat is like it is so easy that it only needs to see the description of the tool and just decide, okay, it has to use this, but underlying can be nowhere related to whatever the CLI tool that you're planning to use.
I have had weird experiences with trying to use MCP servers where for some reason it really, really wants to default to PowerShell. I'm a Mac guy, I'm an old bash guy.
Yeah,
Like it installed PowerShell to get the job done to do the thing
that's
from the MCP server. That was weird to me.
that's the trick. So let's say you have a tool for PowerShell and you have tool install or the MCP server installed for OS X script, right? And all you want to do is create a file. Now, there can be a tool for in PowerShell for creating a file, and then there can be a tool in OS X script MCP server for creating a file. Now, how does the agent decide which tool to use because both are creating the file? And at least in this case both are benign, like both are legit MCP servers, but this brings exactly to the point where tool squatting is an attack now, where I am pushing out some random malicious tool to create this file on your local machine.
Can you give me an example of that? Like, I've never heard anybody use the term tool squatting. That's the first time I've heard that term used. Like,
So tool squatting is similar to typo squatting or package squatting, I would say. So if you're basically using the same tool to do something malicious, so let's say a tool from Slack is send message, right? But you are also in your MCP server, which is deemed to be malicious. You are also creating a tool called send message, but for a different purpose, or maybe even the same purpose. Now, if you want to send a Slack message using the send message tool, the agent will now be confused and it may possibly be picking up the malicious send message tool. So that is how tool squatting can be carried out.
wow. Uh, it seems like there's a lot of problems with just telling a machine you can act on my behalf with the same level of authority and authorization that
Exactly.
I have. It is that really the core of the issue here? Like we're giving an unpredictable probability engine full access as if it was a
To some
deterministic
degree,
person.
yes. Um, um, I mean, the attack vector doesn't really stop at your local machine. Like, you can, like, all of these cloud services, for example, these APIs, GitHub and Slack, since we're talking about these, like, they have nothing to do on my local machine, right? They are on the cloud. So that is, I feel like, a part of the problem. But the bigger part of the problem is like trust boundaries. There are actually no trust boundaries within the chain of thought. Like, I cannot really control what it is thinking, how it is choosing within its own thought process. And the way MCP design, and that's what I realized is when I looked at the documentation and the architecture is there's no easy way to allow these trust boundaries to set so that I can set some trust boundaries. I couldn't find any. And models, all of these agents will happily follow the instructions, you know, and call all of these MCP servers without questioning, if they should be called or not. So I think that is a much bigger challenge.
What do we do then? Like that's the big question. Like we're recording this like the week after Shah Hulud, actually the week of Shah Hulud, that attack, and I guess 2 weeks after NX, which according to Akito is the same attack. It's the exact same people that are just evolving this thing. Maybe for our audience, could you just give us your thoughts on what's going on?
Yeah, I think what I have been doing, at least at my company, and all the friends that they ask me about all of this, is number one, don't assume that local is safe. Like if you're running all of these MCP servers locally and assuming that I'm not running it anywhere, it's not connected to my production system, uh, don't assume that. Even a local MCP server can be, abused if the model routes untrusted input through those MCP servers. Second, I would recommend to use only self-hosted MCP servers and use it in a way that they are immutable. So don't use the latest or a specific version, but use a specific SHA commit when you're using all of those uh, MCPs, or either just build a Docker container and use it via that. So you are not always updating your tools.
This is starting to sound a lot like just old school API security and like package security stuff, right?
Exactly, it is very much same like that. So whatever the checks or controls you put in place for your IDE extensions, your npm packages, just combine all of that, and you'll have the same level of protections for MCP servers as well. I would add one more thing is logging. We don't have a lot of good logs for extensions, um, which was the main reason for NX. We don't have that. We don't really control what packages are on the dev machines. We don't have logging for that. But I would highly encourage to have logging for MCP servers, just to get a sense of what tools are being called, what's the chain of thought for this agent is. I still see that it is lagging in the industry. I don't think there's very good tools out there right now. Uh, but yeah, it's in development.
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask. Like, is there a tool you could recommend? Is there something off the shelf right now? I mean, is there any open source that someone's suggesting that you can just plug in?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of gateway based tools. It's a tool from IBM, MCP Context Forge, I guess. It's a pretty good open source tool that we can just hook in, um, and it acts as a gateway or a proxy, I would say, where we can see what tools we want, what MCP servers we want to hook into that, and it will give you all the telemetry.
So, I have one last question before we move on to like the final section of our show. Uh, this is kind of a big philosophical question. Is this just the price we're paying for moving this fast? That like we will figure out the bugs. We're gonna figure it out. We're humans. We're good at figuring stuff out in the long run. But just in the short term, like, is this just we have to accept that there are going to be these security issues that we, in some cases, have never really seen before?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say that developer adoption is inversely proportional to security. And if you want to have a lot of adoption, which is what we can see with MCPs, um, security is always the afterthought. And we are still seeing some progress. Like they recently um, closed out the RFC for authorization. So right now, MCPs can be integrated with all of these OAuth providers, at least for authentication. Logging is still something that we need to work on, but But yeah, I think it's if you want to increase the developer adoption, security is always going to be the afterthought, and that's how security has been in general, right? GraphQL initially came out; it has a lot of challenges, um, but we security caught up after the adoption was there.
It's crazy that we haven't learned our lesson from this, because this has been the case for all of technology, even technologies that are supposed to provide security. Like all of the original WAFs shipped with everything open, and you had to figure out what to restrict versus, let's ship it with it closed, and you figure out how to open those ports. And we still haven't gotten there yet. The security, you're right, it is the secondary concern. And so I lied. I do have one other question I just thought of, and I hear so much about this from MCP, and I know that's just because it kind of won the contest, is the Betamax versus VHS in a lot of ways. But I don't hear a lot of people talking about agent to agent with the same set of problems. Are you running into that at all? Have you heard that conversation, A to A?
Yes, I mean A2A will be facing some of these problems as well. I feel like authorization would be the biggest challenge in A2A. We can figure out the rest. I don't think that would be too much of a problem, but authorization would be very very difficult because, and the reason for that is now with A2A, with agent to agent communication, we have to put the authorization not at the API level but at the conversation layer as well. So you have to understand the intent, and we have to put the layer at the how the agent, one agent is asking the other agent to give me access to this resource or not, which I feel is very challenging.
It always boils down to authorization and authentication. Like,
Exactly.
so many things in security like are just dealing with that.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing.
I don't think we have figured out authorization in our runtime microservices environment. Like service to service authorization is still a challenge, still very tedious to maintain, very hard to get it right. And we're already talking about agent to agent authorization. It will be very very challenging and very interesting as well.
And that's not even taking into consideration the idea of what is this identity we're actually authenticating. This is a conversation from Identiverse and what's happening in like the CRA and the CSA right now of like, is this a machine identity anymore if it's acting on behalf of a human, or is this something new? Is this a blended identity? Which is a fun philosophical question, but it's a terrifying security and operational question, I think. But that's where we are.
One of the things that I've seen people are trying to do is giving an agent same level of identity, uh, but with a limited scope. So if I want to use an agent and I want to give access to similar to what I am doing, they're creating it, let's say a token or whatever, but with a limited or let's say read only scope only. That in some degrees has been able to work. Um, I don't think it's the best approach, but we are in the early days and we want to move and we want agent to do pretty much everything on our behalf. So that is one approach how we as security professionals can enable this adoption a little bit better.
All right, we are here at the last part of the show. This is where we ask all of our guests the same four standardized questions, give a little format and structure to us. This has been an awesome conversation, though. Thank you so much. So we'll start with the first one, which is, what is your favorite all-time security command line tool?
I come from like very initial security operations role where we did not have a lot of good tools, so we have to literally work on log files. So I would say like OS query has been pretty helpful. I also like JQ, which is very very handy, just to extract what exactly you need. So it's simple, but it's very powerful during incidents.
You've hired people. You have interviewed people for the hiring process. What is your favorite go-to interview question?
Yeah, during the interviews, I think I would like to know more about how they are trying to do security outside their day job. Like, what's the security mindset in their normal day to day? That is something that I'm always interested in because when you talk about the job, you can be very sophisticated that I did a lot of these projects, but we have an incentive for doing all of that. But for our day to day, there's no incentive. There's just we have to protect ourselves. So I'm very keen how creative a person or how to what degrees a person can get in their normal day to day lives to protect their surroundings.
Awesome, man. All right. Best advice, worst advice. What is the best security advice you've ever heard or that you're hearing out there right now?
Yeah. So one of the best security advice that uh, I got has been in my career is design guardrails that work even when no one's watching. So don't be very specific that because I have to do this job and I have to design in such a way that it is highly visible. Um, Oftentimes, when we build all of these workflows, um, they are helpful when these incidents happen and we are preventing it uh, with with that small effort, which no one cared about or no one told me to do. So that has been worked out incrementally very well for me, and I still follow that advice.
And that's good advice to give.
Uh,
And the other side of that, what's the worst security advice you're hearing out there?
I wouldn't say it as an advice, just in normal practice that I have seen is so I'm a big fan of threat modeling, and during threat modeling exercise, at least in my early days, it's like we haven't seen this type of attack, so should we even care about this attack? That I cannot accept it.
That is kind of a terrible line of thinking. Like, my house has never burned down. Why would I need fire insurance?
Exactly. Haven't paid anything for the car insurance yet, so should
Well,
I buy it for my new car? I mean,
it's silly when we put it in those terms, but the enterprise security teams are faced with that actual set of logic every time they bring up budget. It's like, well, do we really need that? It's like, yes, yes, we wouldn't have brought it up otherwise.
exactly, yeah.
All right, man. This has been a tremendously good episode. I've learned so much, and I hope our audience has as well. Want to leave you the chance to say anything else you got on your mind, any other things you want to share, anything else you want to plug out there in the world. The floor is yours.
I would say focus on the basics. Even for MCPs and agents, the basics still matter, and always put them into the lens with what potentially could go wrong, or how will you break this system. That's how I always think.
Great way to leave the show. Thank you for all the advice and all the conversation today. And thanks everybody out there for listening. Really appreciate your support. Like we always say, couldn't do the show without you, and nobody listening to us otherwise. So thank you very much, and thanks very much for being here, John.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Bye.